The brass bell above the door chimed softly as the last customer left, and Julian Moore allowed himself a rare moment of stillness. Behind him, dozens of clocks ticked in gentle discord, a symphony he had long ago stopped noticing. His fingers rested on the worn oak counter that had belonged to his father, and his grandfather before that. The shop smelled of aged wood, metal polish, and time itself. At 58, Julian had become part of the furniture of this unnamed city, a quiet man in a quiet profession. He repaired what others had discarded, restored what others had forgotten. His wife Clara had understood this about him. In the 3 years since her passing, the clocks had become his only company. Tonight, however, something felt different. A weight in the air, perhaps, or the way the evening shadows seemed longer than usual. Julian shook off the feeling and began his nightly ritual of covering the display cases, when his eye fell upon a small envelope that had been pushed beneath the front door. He did not recall hearing it slide through. He crossed the creaking floorboards and picked it up. No name. No stamp. Inside, a single photograph and a handwritten note. The photograph showed a pocket watch he knew intimately. A Patek Philippe from 1889, with its original hunter case and engraved initials MW. He had spent 3 months restoring that piece. The note contains 7 words that would change everything. You have 7 days to find out who I am. Julian's hand trembled slightly as he placed the photograph on the counter. He recognized the watch immediately because it was still here, in his shop, resting in a velvet-lined drawer beneath the cash register. Marcus Webb had brought it in for restoration nearly 4 months ago, a quiet collector who paid in cash and provided no forwarding address. The work had been meticulous. Julian had replaced the mainspring, cleaned the movement, polished the crystal until it gleamed. But Webb never returned. The watch had joined the small collection of unclaimed items that every repair shop accumulates over the years. Julian opened the drawer now and lifted the watch carefully. It was warm in his palm. He compared it to the photograph. The image showed the exact same watch, or at least an identical one. Same case engravings. Same aged dial. But that was impossible. The watch in his hand had never left this shop. So what was in the photograph? And who had taken it? He turned the note over, hoping for more information. Nothing. Just those 7 words, written in an elegant hand. Someone knew about the watch. Someone knew about Marcus Webb. And someone believed that Julian held the key to something important. He thought about calling the police, but what would he say? A customer left a watch. Someone sent a photograph. There was no threat, no demand, no crime reported. Except that Julian remembered something now, a detail that had seemed insignificant at the time. Marcus Webb had been nervous when he delivered the watch. His hands shook as he counted out the bills. He kept looking over his shoulder at the street. Julian had assumed it was simply the manner of a private man. Now he was not so sure. Sleep did not come easily that night. Julian lay in his narrow bed above the shop, listening to the clocks mark the hours. 11. Midnight. 1. Each chime pulled him further from rest and deeper into thought. He had spent his entire life around objects that held stories. Pocket watches that had witnessed proposals. Mantel clocks that had stood in parlors through generations. Each piece told a story if you knew how to listen. But this was different. This was a mystery that wanted to be solved. By morning, Julian had made a decision. He would visit the police. Detective Nora Flynn received him in a small interview room. She was younger than he expected, perhaps 40, with kind eyes that missed nothing. When Julian showed her the photograph and explained about the unclaimed watch, her expression became serious. "And when did you last see Marcus Webb?" she asked. "4 months ago," Julian said. "When he brought the watch in for repair." Nora set down her pen. "Mr. Moore, I need to tell you something. Marcus Webb passed away in his home 3 days ago. Natural causes, the initial examination suggests. But the photograph you have was found among his belongings. The watch in that picture was on his desk." Julian felt confused. Natural causes? Then why send me this? Nora studied him carefully. "That is what we need to understand. The watch in the photograph is not the one you restored. It cannot be, because yours never left your shop. So someone created a copy. The question is why? And the more important question is who wants you to investigate?" Julian took a moment to process this information. Marcus Webb had died of natural causes. There was no murder, no crime scene, no violence. Yet someone had gone to the trouble of creating a duplicate watch and sending him a photograph. Why? Detective Flynn leaned forward. "You understand how this looks," she said gently. "A valuable item connected to a deceased person is in your possession. But you have documentation?" Julian nodded. "I have records. The date he brought it in. The work I performed. My father taught me to document everything. We can verify the timeline." Nora smiled slightly. "That helps." She slid a piece of paper across the table. "This is what we found in Webb's study. A list of 5 names. All of them were acquaintances of his. All of them had some connection to him. And all of them, according to our records, had watches repaired by you in the past 2 years." Julian looked at the names. Arthur Vance, Eleanor Cross, Samuel Cole, Lydia Hayes, Thomas Reed. He knew them. Wealthy clients, all of them. People whose watches he had repaired, whose stories he had glimpsed through the objects they entrusted to him. Nora continued. "Someone wants you to know these people, Mr. Moore. The question is whether you want to accept that invitation. Because if you do, you will be walking into a mystery. But a safe one. We will be with you every step of the way." Julian felt a strange mixture of fear and curiosity. He was a watchmaker, not a detective. But someone had chosen him for a reason. And he owed it to Marcus Webb, and to himself, to understand why. Julian returned to his shop with the list of names and Detective Flynn's promise of support. The note had given him 7 days. 6 now. He decided to begin with the oldest name on the list. Arthur Vance lived in a beautiful old house on a hill, a Victorian home that had been in his family for generations. The intercom at the gate crackled when Julian announced himself. "Mr. Vance does not receive visitors without appointment. Tell him Julian Moore brought his grandfather's clock for inspection." There was a pause, then the gate swung open. The house inside was filled with clocks. Every surface held a timepiece, every wall bore a ticking clock. The man himself appeared in the doorway of his study, thin and elderly, with curious eyes. "You repaired my Breguet," Vance said. "It keeps perfect time now." "Thank you." Julian smiled. I am trying to understand something about Marcus Webb. He was a collector, like yourself. He owned a watch that interests me. Vance's expression became thoughtful. Marcus Webb. I knew him slightly. We attended the same auctions sometimes. A quiet man. I was sorry to hear of his passing. Julian showed him the photograph of the watch. Did you ever see this piece? Vance examined it carefully. A beautiful thing. But no, I never saw it in person. I recall Marcus mentioning he had something special, but he was always secretive about his collection. The visit was brief but pleasant. As Julian left, he felt he had learned something small but important. Arthur Vance was simply an elderly gentleman who loved clocks. Nothing more. Eleanor Cross received Julian in a lovely drawing room filled with antique furniture and family photographs. She was elegant, perhaps 45, with a warm smile and gracious manners. "Mr. Moore," she said, offering her hand. "I remember you. You restored my mother's carriage clock. It means the world to me." Julian accepted her hand gratefully. "The clock keeps perfect time. I was hoping you might help me with something. Information about Marcus Webb." Eleanor's smile became sad. "Marcus. Yes, I knew him. We were friends, years ago. He helped my family with some legal matters. A kind man. I was devastated to learn of his death." Julian showed her the photograph. "Did he ever mention this watch to you?" Eleanor studied it carefully. "I don't recall him mentioning a watch specifically. But Marcus loved beautiful things. He had an eye for quality. It makes sense he would own something so lovely." She handed the photograph back. "I'm sorry I can't be more helpful. Is there something particular you're investigating?" Julian hesitated. "Someone sent me this photograph. I'm trying to understand why." Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. Marcus was a private person, but he was also thoughtful. If someone sent you that picture, I'm sure they had a good reason. Perhaps they want you to know something about Marcus that he never shared. It was a kind observation, and Julian left feeling that Eleanor Cross was exactly what she appeared to be. A gracious woman with fond memories of an old friend. Dr. Samuel Cole worked at a modern medical clinic, helping patients with reconstructive surgery. His office was clean and professional, with certificates on the walls and a photo of his family on the desk. He greeted Julian warmly. "Mr. Moore, good to see you. That ship's chronometer you restored for me is magnificent. My grandfather would be so pleased." Julian smiled. "It was beautiful work. I'm glad you're happy with it." Dr. Cole leaned back in his chair. "What brings you here today? Is there another piece you're working on?" Julian showed him the photograph. "I'm trying to learn about Marcus Webb. Did you know him?" Dr. Cole's expression became thoughtful. "Marcus Webb. Yes, I knew him slightly. He was a patient once, years ago. A minor procedure. Seemed like a nice man. I was sorry to hear he passed away." Julian studied the doctor's face. "Did he ever mention a watch collection?" "Not to me," Dr. Cole said. "But then, we didn't talk much beyond medical matters. He was always polite, always grateful. That's how I remember him." He looked at the photograph again. "That's a beautiful piece. Is it valuable? Historically, yes, Julian said. But also personally. It belonged to his family, I believe. Dr. Cole nodded. Then it's good you're looking into it. Family heirlooms matter. They connect us to our past. It was a simple, kind observation, and Julian left feeling that Dr. Cole was exactly the person he appeared to be. A dedicated doctor who helped people and valued family history. Lydia Hayes lived in a bright, modern apartment filled with art and plants. She was young, perhaps 35, with an easy smile and an open manner. "Mr. Moore," she said, welcoming him inside. "I was so happy to hear from you. That watch you repaired for me, the one that belonged to my husband's grandfather, it runs perfectly now." "Thank you." Julian accepted her hospitality. "I'm glad I could help. I'm actually here about something else." Marcus Webb. Lydia's expression softened. "Marcus. He was a friend of my late husband. They did business together years ago. A good man. I was sad to hear about his passing." Julian showed her the photograph. "Did he ever mention this watch?" Lydia studied it carefully. "I don't recall him mentioning a watch specifically. But he and Richard, my husband, they shared an interest in antiques. It's possible Richard knew about it. I'm sorry I can't tell you more." Julian thanked her. She offered him tea, and they talked for a while about watches and memories and the passage of time. Lydia spoke fondly of her husband, of their life together, of the importance of keeping family treasures safe. As Julian left, he felt he had made a friend. Lydia Hayes was kind, genuine, and clearly still grieving the loss of her husband. Whatever mystery surrounded Marcus Webb, she seemed far removed from it. Thomas Reed was the most difficult to find. The last name on the list had no fixed address in recent records. Julian spent a day asking around, visiting old business districts, talking to shopkeepers who remembered better times. Finally, he found him living in a small apartment above a quiet street. Reed opened the door slowly. He was 61, with gray hair and tired eyes, but his manner was gentle. "Julian Moore," he said. "I remember you. You repaired my father's pocket watch, the one he carried through the war. It's the only thing I have left of him." Julian nodded. It was an honor to work on it. Reed invited him inside. The apartment was small but neat, with books on shelves and the pocket watch on the windowsill, catching the afternoon light. "You're here about Marcus," Reed said quietly. "Yes," Julian admitted. "How did you know?" "Because people don't usually find me unless it's about the past." Reed sat down. "Marcus and I were friends once. Good friends. We worked together. Then we had a disagreement, a business thing, and we lost touch. I heard he passed away. I'm sorry about that." Julian showed him the photograph. "Did he ever mention this watch?" Reed examined it carefully. "No, I never saw this. But Marcus always loved beautiful things. It doesn't surprise me he had something like this." He handed it back. "I wish I could help more. Marcus was a good man. We just went different ways, that's all. It happens." Julian felt a wave of sadness for this quiet man living alone with his memories. Whatever had happened between him and Marcus Webb, it was clearly in the past, settled and accepted. For days remained, and Julian had learned something important. Not about the watch, but about people. Arthur Vance, Eleanor Cross, Dr. Samuel Cole, Lydia Hayes, and Thomas Reed. They were all different, all with their own stories, but they shared one thing. They all spoke of Marcus Webb with respect and fondness. No one had a bad word to say about him. Julian sat in his workshop that evening, surrounded by the peaceful ticking of clocks, and tried to understand. If Marcus Webb was so well liked, why had someone sent him that photograph? Why the mystery? He took out the watch again and examined it under the light. The beautiful engraving. The intricate movement. The careful craftsmanship of another era. And then he noticed something he had missed before. On the inner case back, almost invisible, there was a tiny inscription. A date. December 15, 1923. And initials. M.W. But not Marcus Webb. Someone else. The original owner. Julian's heart beat faster. This watch had a history. A real history, stretching back a century. And somehow, that history connected to the 5 names on the list. He reached for his telephone and called Detective Flynn. "I think I found something," he said. "Something important. But not dangerous. Just meaningful." Detective Flynn listened quietly as he explained. When he finished, she was silent for a moment. "That's beautiful, Mr. Moore," she said finally. "I think you're starting to understand. I think Marcus Webb wanted you to understand." The next morning, Julian received another envelope. Pushed beneath the door, just like the first. Inside, a second photograph. This one showed an old document, yellowed with age. A letter, handwritten in elegant script. Dated December 15, 1923. Julian read it with growing wonder. The letter was from a man named Michael Webb to his 5 dearest friends. Vance, Cross, Cole, Hayes, Reed. The same names. In it, he explained that he had purchased a special pocket watch to commemorate their friendship. A watch that would be passed down through generations, a symbol of the bond between their families. He asked that each family keep the watch for 1 year, then pass it to the next, in a continuous circle of friendship. The watch was never to be sold. Never to be locked away. It was meant to be shared, to connect the families across time. Julian set the letter down with trembling hands. The watch. The list. The photograph. It was not a mystery. It was a message. A reminder. Marcus Webb had discovered the old tradition. He had found the watch, restored it, and wanted to continue what his ancestor started. But he had passed away before he could complete the circle. And so he had arranged, somehow, for Julian to receive the photographs. To understand. To continue the tradition. Julian looked at the watch in his hands and saw it differently now. Not as an object, but as a bridge. Connecting people across generations. Across time itself. Julian spent the next 2 days preparing. He cleaned the watch one final time, polished its crystal, ensured its movement was perfect. Then he made 5 telephone calls. Arthur Vance. Eleanor Cross. Dr. Samuel Cole. Lydia Hayes. Thomas Reed. He invited them all to his shop on the 7th day. He told them he had something important to share. Something that belonged to all of them. They came, each one curious, each one wondering why a watchmaker had summoned them. They stood in Julian's shop surrounded by ticking clocks, 5 strangers connected by something they did not yet understand. Julian welcomed them warmly. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know this is unusual. But I have something that belongs to your families. Something that has been waiting a long time to be returned." He held up the watch. This was purchased in 1923 by Michael Webb. He bought it to celebrate his friendship with 5 people. Your ancestors: Vance, Cross, Cole, Hayes, Reed. The 5 names on this list. The watch was meant to be shared. Each family would keep it for a year, then pass it to the next. A circle of friendship. A tradition. Eleanor Cross gasped softly. "I've heard stories about this," she whispered. "My grandmother mentioned it once. A watch that traveled between families. I thought it was just a legend." Dr. Cole stepped forward. "My grandfather spoke of something like this. He said there was a tradition, but it was lost over the years. Families moved. People lost touch." Julian nodded. Marcus Webb discovered the tradition. He found the watch, restored it, and wanted to continue what his ancestors started. But he passed away before he could complete the circle. So he arranged for me to find it. To bring you here. To give it back. Thomas Reed approached the watch slowly. He reached out and touched it gently, as if it were made of light. "My father would have loved this," he said quietly. "He always talked about family connections, about the importance of knowing where we come from." Lydia Hayes wiped her eyes. "My husband's family had a similar story. A watch that connected them to others. I never knew it was real." Arthur Vance, the elderly gentleman who loved clocks, smiled with recognition. "I remember my grandfather mentioning the Webb watch. He said it was the most beautiful timepiece he ever saw. And here it is. After all these years." Julian held the watch out to them. "It belongs to all of you. The tradition was that each family would keep it for a year, then pass it on. I thought, perhaps, you might want to continue that tradition. Starting today." There was a moment of silence. 5 people, strangers an hour ago, now connected by a 100-year-old thread. Then Eleanor Cross spoke. "My family would be honored to keep it first, if everyone agrees. But only for a year. Then it moves on." One by one, the others nodded. It felt right. It felt like coming home. Julian handed the watch to Eleanor. "Take care of it," he said. "It carries more than time. It carries history. It carries friendship. It carries love." The 5 new friends stayed at Julian's shop for hours. They talked about their families, their histories, their hopes. They discovered connections they never knew existed. Thomas Reed's grandmother had been friends with Eleanor Cross's great-aunt. Dr. Cole's grandfather had worked with Arthur Vance's father. Lydia Hayes's husband had collected antiques from the same auctions that Marcus Webb attended. The watch brought them together, but the conversation kept them there. They exchanged phone numbers, email addresses, promises to stay in touch. They planned a dinner for the following month, when the watch would move from Eleanor's home to the next family on the list. Julian watched them go with a full heart. He had spent his life repairing objects, giving them new life. But this was different. This was repairing connections. Bringing people together. Honoring a tradition that had almost been lost. That night, alone in his shop with the ticking clocks, Julian thought about Marcus Webb. A quiet man who loved beautiful things. A man who, even in death, had found a way to bring people together. To complete a circle that had been broken for generations. Julian looked at the empty space on his counter where the watch had rested for so many months. It felt right that it was gone. It was where it belonged now. Moving through the world, connecting people, carrying time forward. A year later, Julian received a photograph in the mail. No return address. No note. Just a picture of the watch, resting on a different counter, in a different home. The home of Dr. Samuel Cole. Behind it, 5 people smiled at the camera. Arthur Vance, Eleanor Cross, Dr. Cole himself, Lydia Hayes, and Thomas Reed. They had gathered to mark the passing of the watch from Eleanor's family to Dr. Cole's. A celebration of friendship. A continuation of tradition. Julian placed the photograph on his mantelpiece, next to a picture of Clara. He thought about the mystery that had begun with a simple envelope pushed under his door. The fear he had felt. The questions he had asked. The journey he had taken. And he understood now what Marcus Webb had wanted him to learn. Some mysteries are not about crime or danger. Some mysteries are about connection. About the invisible threads that bind us to each other across time and distance. The watch was still traveling. Still moving from family to family, year after year. Still doing what it was made to do. Not just keeping time, but keeping people together. Julian Moore, watchmaker, returned to his work. There were clocks to repair, histories to preserve, stories to continue. And somewhere out there, a small pocket watch was ticking away, carrying 100 years of friendship into the future. The bell above his door chimed. A new customer entered. And Julian smiled, ready for whatever story walked through next.